After 30 years of teaching in this community and 40 years of a teaching career in total, one Winnipeg music teacher is saying farewell to the studio. Laurel Howard has been a string instructor and Suzuki music teacher in the Wolseley area, and earlier this month, she hosted her final studio recital, closing the book on an incredible career molding the minds and hands of Winnipeg's next musical generation. Laurel joins me from her home this morning. Hello there.
Good morning, Nolan.
Thank you so much for joining me. First of all, maybe we can backtrack all the way to your musical formation. How did you get started on the Suzuki method in the first place?
Well, my own musical formation dates back to my childhood as a pianist and later a violist, and then my formal training as an instrumentalist at University of Saskatchewan, and then the Royal Conservatory and the Orchestral Training Program, the National Youth Orchestra, and then on to the University of Michigan, where I did a master's degree in musicology and loved that very much and kept playing. And then after I finished that, I realized that academia wasn't for me and that I wanted to do something a little more hands-on, and came back to Winnipeg and started to explore teaching. And at that point, I got to know Joanne Martin, who's a wonderful Suzuki pedagogue who ran the Suzuki program here at the University of Manitoba. And she encouraged me to pursue some training. I then, with my husband, we lived in Edmonton, and I started teaching the Suzuki method. And over years, began to do the training that's associated with becoming a Suzuki teacher, which is incredibly valuable in learning how to set up beginners and providing a philosophical framework from which to base your pedagogy.
So for those people who are listening and going, they're talking about this Suzuki method, might not necessarily have an idea of what that is. Maybe you can give in broad strokes what the Suzuki method is when it comes to musical instruction and what sorts of things make it a successful way to teach music for emerging artists.
Yes, and for young people in general, absolutely. Yes. So Dr. Shinichi Suzuki lived a long life spanning the 20th century. It was Japanese and did his own personal violin training in Berlin under the great European masters and in that tradition. But then returning to Japan after the Second World War, saw a great need to rebuild the community and to develop young souls that were nurtured by love and to provide hope for this new generation in the post-war. And so actually the name of his biography is Nurtured by Love. So it's the development of people through music, the development of beautiful souls through the teaching of music. So that's the philosophical underpinning. And the wonderful aspects of the method are that the parents are involved from the very beginning, so that we call it the Suzuki Triangle. So we have, as teachers, the incredible privilege of working with families. And so often families will come to me. This year I have students who are 4 years old, actually started at 3. And, wow. We have a little tiny boxelin that we put on our shoulders. But we're developing musical skills, and we're developing a relationship, and we're providing a musical environment. So we have these relationships with the parents who also learn the instrument in the early years. And so we've got this triangle where the Suzuki teacher provides the instruction at the lesson, and then the parent becomes the teacher at home, the home teacher. The other really important thing, there's many things, but in Suzuki instruction in the beginning, the children learn entirely by ear. So we follow the maxim that it's like learning a language. So there's acquisition and then there's production. So Suzuki called it the mother tongue method. So the children listen to the CDs, or now it's iTunes. And we actually have beautiful new recordings of Hilary Hahn playing the repertoire. They listen to it, they absorb it, and over a period of time, once we set up the fundamentals, the rudiments of the positions, then they can produce the songs by ear. We call them songs because they're often folk songs. I call them pieces later, but for kids, we
Right.
call them songs. Yeah. And so that's fantastic. And then the other keystone of the method is that we have group classes as well as individual classes.
Hmm.
So that's what my affiliation for 30 years has been as a group class teacher as well as a private teacher.
So that's so interesting to hear about this very wholesome and a method that is run in ear training and in community. And it strikes me that that is perhaps quite a different approach to music making and music instruction than the path that you had initially started on, traveling through your master's degree and musicology, which is something so academic. What was that switch over like for you in your musical career?
It was a revelation, and it was humbling, because even though I was an accomplished musician, my learning by ear was not at the level that my young students are now capable of doing. So, and I have seen that as this generation of students has grown up, or these generations, and my own children, is that with the learning by ear from the very beginning, they have a whole different orientation. So it's like, yeah, so it's very humbling for me. And I've had to develop that side of my own musicality over the years. It's the thought of developing music from of giving music from the inside out, so that you've got this acquisition. It's come into your ears, and then you produce it like language. Whereas I was taught, and by beautiful teachers. I'd had a wonderful musical education, but it was very visual, right? So you've got music in front of you, and you're learning, or it's like this. Rather than if you have absorbed the work by ear, you can produce it from an internal place. And then I find that my students who have come up through this method can improvise, they can fiddle, they pick up songs at home, they play with friends, and it's just a different orientation. So that's the other thing about the children learning by ear at first, is they develop that side, and then we work on the reading skills over time, so that by the time they're at about what would be a grade 3 or 4 Royal Conservatory level, they're then reading more fluently, and then they of course become fluent readers as well. But it is definitely ear-based in the beginning.
So this method also strikes me as being quite holistic in its approach, and would undoubtedly have impacts not just on a young student's musicianship, but also on who they become and how they're able to adapt. You speak about the ability to improvise and fiddle around and things like that. And of course, we know that those skills translate into life as well. What do you notice about how this method impacts students, not just as musicians, but also as people?
Well, Nolan, I feel so blessed that, to have these families in my life, sometimes for 10 or 11 years. And I do see that this sense of community and nurturing that the children have been offered does manifest, or at least I believe it helps to manifest in a self-awareness, a self-confidence, and a kindness and an openness towards the world. And I feel, in all of my students, I sense a curiosity and an ability to listen and analyze that I believe comes from that music education. And of course that would come from other forms of arts education as well. But this is why the value of an arts education is so important. My goodness, in this time that we live in, when other values are being propagated and promoted, it's so important that we get back to the fundamentals of what an arts education provides, a music education. So I know that if there are any young families listening who are looking for this community to nurture their young people, I highly recommend, this Suzuki method that we have. And we have other teachers in the city who are trained, who teach for not just in Suzuki Music Winnipeg, but have a look and find trained teachers. The training is extremely important, just to give teachers the nuts and bolts needed to get young people started.
Later on this morning, we will have a link to Suzuki teachers here in the city of Winnipeg that are trained. That'll be up at our website, classic107.com, and on the Classic 107 app. This is a huge part of your musical life, Laurel, that, as noble as it is now coming to an end for you at the very least. What does it mean for you as a teacher involved in this very holistic musical education practice to be giving that community and giving that space up?
Well, earlier in the fall, last fall, I was approached by two of my former students who were interested in teaching. And I thought, perhaps this is a sign that it's, and my birthday passed, and I thought perhaps this is a sign that it's time to hand over the reins to the next generation of teachers, especially those who are keen to study pedagogy and embrace this method. So in that sense, I feel really hopeful because my fine young former students, Liana Fonseca and John Selleck, are interested in taking this training, and I've got other colleagues who are taking my students. And as has been in the past, my more advanced students are going to symphony players. Gwen Hobick will take one this year. So in that sense, I feel that perhaps the timing is good. And although there was part of me that thought I might teach until I was 80, like many of the venerable teachers in this city have done, I would like to just free up some of my own time to pursue some personal interests. And I do hope to keep active as a mentor to my younger teachers and as a community violist, as I've done over the past many years. My husband and I hope to enjoy our cottage more, and I hope to spend more time with my birder friends and and of course be free to go and visit my children who are also musicians and live in Eastern Canada.
Quite active musicians at that. And trading in Suzuki song for birdsong sounds like a great way to spend time. Although perhaps not on a rainy day like today in the city of Winnipeg. You recently hosted your final spring recital, sort of that final exclamation mark on the career. Always such a fun way to end any year, but this one I'm sure more poignant than most. What was that experience like for you to see these kids, the final ones of your teaching career, perform?
Wonderful. Well, I had two wonderful experiences. We had our final Suzuki recital, which was the final one for me, and also for my longtime colleague, Judy Tenenhouse, who spent 37 years in the program. Oh. And that was very, very beautiful to be able to have that celebration with the children and the families together. And then the following week, I did my own recital, and that was lovely. And of course, mixed feelings. But one of the things that I've been able to do over the many years is have chamber groups made up of my students. And so was very, very happy to have some of my teenagers perform in a quartet at the end, and also a beautiful performance of the Bach double violin concerto. So it's terribly, it's just so beautiful to see the range of students, from the little ones who can put their bow on the string and put their fingers on the E string 1, 2, 3 and down, right up to the beauty of Mozart K387. So it was really a lovely, beautiful day, and a gorgeous memory for me to hold on to.
Yeah, absolutely. Bach, the double violin concerto, boy, a big part of the musical community here in the city these days. It was performed last night by the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra as well with the Chewy brothers. So you're really tapping into something here, Laurel. As you think about that next chapter, and as you are visiting your children and spending time at the cottage, doing the birding, what's the thing that you think that you will miss most about being a part of the Suzuki community here in the city of Winnipeg in such an active way as you have been?
Oh, it's the weekly contact. It's the joy that these little people bring, the energy, the interaction. The little drawings, the wonderful Duplo creations that get made in my foyer as the children make. So it's the beauty of the love of the children themselves. Right from the little ones up through the teens, the relations, the close relationships. But I've been very fortunate that my students, many of them keep in touch, and I'll be going to one wedding next month of one, and wow. These are lifelong relationships for which I'm deeply grateful.
Yeah, it seems like this is like a really sort of meaningful connection that you foster with students that is really quite tangible from the outset here as well, that you're able to be a part of their lives even as music and their relationship to it might change over the years as well.
Absolutely. Yes, it's beautiful to watch them. Many of them have gone on to professional careers as musicians, and others have gone on to wonderful lives as adults, and I feel proud of all of them.
Well, I'm sure the community is also quite proud of you and all of the accomplishments that you've had in your teaching career. Laurel Howard, congratulations on an incredible career. And thank you so much for joining us here on Classic 107 to tell us more about it.
Thank you so much for your interest, Nolan. It's been a pleasure to talk with you this morning.